So I believe we are live and streaming. My name is Dr. Yolanda Columbus. My business is Make Moves, Not Excuses. Um, yesterday, yesterday was day one of 100. So I'm doing the Alex Hermosi rule of 100, where for me, it's 100 minutes of video creation for 100 days. So yesterday, I did day one on Facebook. Today, this is day one on LinkedIn Live. Wasn't quite sure I was going to have content for LinkedIn Live, but when I pulled out the nuggets of what I learned about myself yesterday and how I'm currently running, it's definitely appropriate for LinkedIn Live, which is more professional. So you guys may notice we're in what I call is Missions HQ. It's my tiny shed. At one point, it was going to be a tiny home, and now it's a tiny office. The story behind that, if you're interested in it, let me know. More than happy to have coffee behind that and explain to you the shifts and how we got here. So why LinkedIn Live today? In January of 2026, I wrote a blog post about the gilded cage. The gilded cage is for a lot of us, me at one point, a lot of people, is when you have the profession, the career, or the business that you thought you wanted, but it's actually keeping you trapped and you didn't know it. And I proposed as a solution to that, the be, do, have framework. Now, how this is connected to yesterday is yesterday on Facebook, I shared how in this season, I'm leaning into the be, do, have framework. And by leaning in, I mean being more intentional, being more disciplined. It's something that I've built my business on. And in this season, I'm leaning into it heavily. Why? Because on May 15th, I left both of my W-2s. I've always had a side hustle, became a full-time entrepreneur in 2017. And around 2020, I started getting part-time jobs just to supplement the income or to give me additional skills that I needed for my own business. So on May 15th, I left my part-time job at my church, and I left my part-time job with Jameson Grace Marketing. And what that means for me is that I'm no longer trading hours for income. I'm commission-based with Business Network International as a chapter launch director, and then my own business. So how I show up determines my impact on my circle, determines my revenue. And while this has always been true, I'm particularly aware of it in this season. So what am I doing? I'm leaning heavily into be, do, have. And so I thought for LinkedIn, what it would be, since I've mentioned this a few times in a few posts, it'd be good to explain what I mean by the be, do, have framework. So be, do, have. I believe most of us, and what we're taught, is we define the results we want. So we define what we want to have, then we back up and we determine what we need to do, and then we figure out who we need to be to get these things. I'm operating from be, do, have. So if you think about it, let's see, where's best to write this at? If I do here, let's just start here. So if you think about it, B is the foundation. So this is your identity. If you're a Christian, it may be who God called you to be. It is. If you're a Christian, it is who God called you to be. It's your virtues. It's those qualities. It's those values that are the core of who you are. And if you remember the picture with the glacier, the B is what's below the water. It's the foundation of everything. And then when we are aligned, the doingness flows from the B. These are the things that we get to do. So for me in this season, when I'm stuck, what would an intentional woman do? What would a disciplined woman do? And I believe when we operate from B, flow into the doing, then we can have the things. And they're not just things that we want, they're things that are soul satisfying. There are things that are fulfilling to us. There are things that speak to who we are. So the B is the bottom with the glacier, our virtues, our intent, our mindset. The do are the tasks that we get to do, and the have are the results. If you're a Christian, then you know scripture related to be. God knitted us together in the wounds, in the our innermost parts, in the wounds of our mom. He knew us before the world began, before we did anything. He loved us. That's our beingness, and that's the root. Then the doingness flows from that and the tasks. And there's also, if you're more research or science oriented, there's also theories that align with this. If you look into the Atomic Habits guy, James Clear, his Atomic Habits, when he's talking about building new habits and how to keep those new habits, you can see this framework. If you look at what is it? It's Cole. I believe it's Cole learning. His learning model. You can see this as well. And so it's in everything we do. And when we operate from here, then the doingness flows and the have is more fulfilling. So that's why I wanted to mention it today, because I believe there's a lot of professionals. There are a lot of us out there where we're frustrated. We have the gilded cage. We have we had enough skill, enough knowledge, enough blessings, enough network to get the have. So we have the and this is my story. You have the 6-figure salary, you have the retail therapy, and you have the shopping spree. You're able to give to your family members. You have it. And somehow you're still not feeling free. My story, I didn't feel free to be who I was. I felt like I had to show up a certain kind of way to keep all the things that I had. Like the purple hair that I have today, I wouldn't have done in my profession, not because anybody said, no, Yolanda, you couldn't, but because when I looked, when I considered what may be said and what may be at risk, it wasn't worth it to me. So I played the game. I wore the mask. And so in 2018, when I left my full-time career in higher education, and became a full-time entrepreneur, that's when I started on this journey of trying to figure out who I am. And in these last 8 or 9 years, I figured out I could have been this person all along. I could have done this as a professor. I could have done this as a higher education administrator. I could have fully operated in who God called me to be, and I didn't know how. There was mindsets, there were habits that were just in my way. And so I'm operating from the Be Do Have framework. I'm sharing my journey with others so that others, if they choose to stay in their profession, may do the same, coming from who they are and not who they believe they're supposed to be. My name, again, is Dr. Yolanda Columbus. My business is Make Moves, Not Excuses. We create systems, products, and experiences to improve the human performance. And if you're interested in any of that, please send me a DM or a comment below, and I'll be sure to get in contact with you. All right, I'm out.